Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And I am Deanne Crane with the National Safety Council, and I'm your moderator this morning. You do have the capability to ask questions in the chat function. So as we go along, if you have questions, just pop them in the chat and we will address those at the end. And then again, just to ensure a good quality webinar for everyone, make sure that your audio and your video is muted throughout the session. And at the end, we will have an evaluation link that will go into the chat, which helps us gather your comments for future training resources, presentations, and so forth. So I want to welcome our speaker this morning, Lonny Haschel. And Lonny spent 33 years in law enforcement and retired from the Texas Department of Public Safety in 2021. And the National Safety Council was very lucky and happy to have him join our team as the program manager over the Check to Protect program. And that program is a national campaign through the National Safety Council, and it encourages all drivers to check the recall status of their vehicles, and if they have open recalls, to get those fixed immediately. So I'm going to turn it over to Lonny, and he can jump right in and get started.
Thank you, Deanne. I appreciate that. Hello, everybody. It's National Flapjack Day for those of you that are into pancakes, so make sure that you celebrate that however you choose. I'm going to hit my share screen button here. I did spend about 30 plus years in the state of Texas, so if you pick up a little accent, that's where I got that from. And there we are. All right, so again, welcome. My name is Lonny Haschel again from the National Safety Council. I'm program manager over the Check to Protect program. So we'll talk about what that is and how this can help you and your employees and even your family.
Lonny, you got muted for some reason.
Well, let's try this. So here's your introduction. Was that better, Deanne?
Yes, that's great.
All right. The joys of technology. Technology is never my friend. So when I hit the share screen button, it muted me. Perhaps it knows something that I don't. So there we go. All right.
Did it again, Lonny.
So are we back?
We're back.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Got it figured out. All right. So what is Check to Protect? It's a national campaign led by the Safety Council. The impact of the program continues to grow, and we've got some partners, some behind the scenes folks that are allowing us to do the work that we do. Those listed on the screen there, we work with, or I work with on a daily basis because we have such a huge issue. There are 50 million vehicles on our roadways right now across this country with open safety recalls. And some of these are really serious. And we'll talk about a few of those here coming up. But these auto manufacturers really want to do everything they can to get people in to get these recalls fixed. And it's free. A lot of people aren't aware that it is free to fix a recall if you take it into an authorized dealer. So these are our partners, kind of behind the scenes folks. So Check to Protect itself is focused solely on vehicle safety recalls. It's a collaborative effort to try to get people to take things more seriously. Many of you have probably received that safety recall notice letter in the mail and look at it and think, oh, it's just an advertisement from insert your dealer here. And a lot of people shred those. We want people to take those seriously, take a look at them, see what they say, and then go out and get the things fixed because it can affect the safety of anybody in that vehicle or around the vehicle. Say a brake recall, for example. It's especially important for companies. If you have a fleet of vehicles and you've got a recall that goes unrepaired and something were to happen, then you get into liability issues and insurance and such. So that's why recalls and repairs are so important. So our goals.
Thank you.
Goals are to frame recalls in the context of vehicle maintenance. So think about the first car that you got back in the day, whenever that was. Did you get the brand new, latest, greatest, safest thing out there? if you were like me, and I'm going to date myself here, but I received a 1976 Chevrolet pickup with no floorboard. I grew up in the northern part of the United States, and rust was an issue up there. I knew nothing about vehicle recalls until I bought my first vehicle from a dealer in my mid 20s. Um, prior to that, it was parents, college kids. They go off to school, they're driving grandma's car or whomever. So that recall notice goes to the family. Young people that enlist in the military, same thing there. They're driving that car, off they go to the military, and they don't even know anything about a vehicle recall that's on dad's car, mom's car, grandma's car, who's ever that they've been driving until they buy that first one and then they get into a system. So we really want to add that as part of maintenance. You check the tires, check the brakes, check the windshield wipers. Oh, and let's check for recalls because they can be listed at any time. Here's a kind of a scary number. 2.5 million airbags were recalled in February, just last month. 2.5 million across the country. And they were not in newer vehicles. We're talking 2020, 2019 vehicles. So if you happen to drive one of those, and there were two big manufacturers that those were impacted by, if you get that recall notice, please, please, please check for recall and get that thing fixed. We really want to try to understand the barriers, and I'm going to list some of those. And we really want to explore some long-term things of what we can do to help people, encourage them to go get these things fixed. So these are the people that we work with: governors, employers, dealerships, nonprofit, law enforcement, colleges, the U.S. military. We've got a really strong partnership with them to get to those young folks. And this may come as a shock to you, but we learned from our military partners that people aren't getting their driver licenses as soon as they used to. Back in my day, it was 15 and a half, and we had to have that driver license because our parents needed us to drive farm equipment or go take the siblings to practices and such. But now young people today are waiting. So all the more reason to include that recall information in vehicle maintenance. So here's the scope. I already mentioned 50 million vehicles. So 24% of all light trucks in the United States have open recalls. Minivans are 20% and passenger cars are 18%. So it is a huge, huge problem. Up to 25% of all vehicles on the United States roadways, that's 1 out of every 5, has an open safety recall. And in 2022, that's our last statistical year we have information for, only 58% of drivers repaired those. Everybody else threw that thing in the trash or disregarded it for whatever reason. And this can include not only passenger cars, but if you have a fleet. We were talking earlier, Amazon, for example, has that fleet of vans that could be made by whomever, Dodge, Ford, Mercedes, whatever. RVs. If you, your family, your worker, your employees, workers, they take that family vacation and hop in that RV. That RV, the chassis is made by somebody, Dodge, Ford, Mercedes, General Motors, whomever. The manufacturer of the RV company, they buy those chassis from that large automaker, ship them to their facility, and then they build them from the ground up. So if there's a recall on that chassis, we need to know about that for families who are using those as well in the recreational vehicles. So we focus on, this is Check to Protect Coalition, focus on drivers of vehicles that are 5 years old or older. We want everybody to get their vehicles looked at and recalls fixed. But recall compliance is only 44% for these vehicles. So you think about it, you go buy a new truck from whomever, or you buy that new car, new minivan, whatever you've purchased, you get that. They know, the dealer knows you have it. So you're now in the system. Something goes wrong with that, they issue a recall, they're going to send you that letter. They may even call you. Comes time to trade that vehicle in, which may be longer now because of vehicle prices. But you trade it in usually to the dealer, and then they resell it. That second time may or may not come back to the dealer. That resale then may go outright to somebody else. And then, Deanne sells it to Mandy, and Mandy sells it to Jim. Well, by then, the automaker has lost track of who owns that. They do work with the Department of Motor Vehicles in every state, but sometimes, and there's probably somebody on this call that has received a recall notice for a vehicle they don't own anymore. And I just heard yesterday a gentleman sold a vehicle 6 years ago and he got a recall notice just this week. So that's why we encourage people to be more proactive and use what we're going to show you here in a moment to check for yourself. So how many cars in each state? The darker the color on the map, the more recalls that we're looking at. A lot of people on this call are from Texas. I'll show you your exact number here. But Texas, California, Florida are traditionally over the last 5 to 7 years have been our highest open safety recalls. Nearly 25% of all vehicles in the state of Texas have an open safety recall that has not been repaired. Here's our top 10. California and Texas are now tied. Last year, California was in the lead, but Texas, for whatever reason, caught up. So they are both tied at 5.6 million vehicles. That's a lot of vehicles. Texas is big, so is California, but that's still a lot. And then it moves on down. Florida, New York, even Michigan has 1.5 million vehicles with open safety recalls. So it's a huge issue out there, which is why the National Safety Council has this as a focus area. We are all about safety. After all, safety is our middle name. But this really impacts a large portion of the United States population, and we are, again, all about safety. Some of you may have heard about the Takata airbag recall. 67 million airbags have been recalled since this came out in 2014. This was kind of the reason that Check to Protect came about, is to try to help reach the older owners of those vehicles. There's still millions of these Takata airbags out there. And if you're not familiar with what happens, if you notice in the picture there, the inflator over time can degrade due to a manufacturing defect. And when that airbag deploys, the airbag doesn't just come out airbag alone. Parts of the inflator come off with it, like shrapnel that you've probably seen or experienced in, or not seen, but you've probably seen in a movie, a hand grenade. It throws pieces of metal through the airbag and into the passenger compartment. To date, 27 people have been killed by these things, and hundreds across the United States have been injured from them. Some of them actually have what they call do not drive. So the manufacturers are really desperately trying to find these vehicles and get those repaired. If you happen to do a check on a vehicle and it comes back with a do not drive warning, we'll talk about that here in a moment, but the dealer will send a wrecker to wherever that vehicle is, a tow truck, and hook that thing up and take it back to the dealer to have it repaired. That's how serious this is. In December of 23, just about 4 months ago, 1 million additional front passenger airbags were recalled because of this. And it was a defect. Takata itself is no longer in business, but the impact of what happened is still out there across the country. So that one's a pretty serious one. And again, they have special warnings on some of these. Which brings me to the advisories. So these are the states. This is another map. And our silent partner in all this is Carfax. They help us with data and research and such. But these are the states, and you'll get to see this here in just a moment, with these two advisories. One's called do not drive, and the other one's called park outside. A do not drive advisory is like that Takata. There is something, whatever the defect is, the recall is, it is so serious that the auto manufacturer doesn't want anybody behind the wheel of that thing when it's in operation. It needs to remain parked until a wrecker tow truck can come get it, tow it back to the dealer where it will be fixed. And that cost is covered by the manufacturer. I work with and mentioned my partners at the top of the presentation, but I've heard stories from them where they have customers in Alaska where it is a all-day trip just to get to a car dealer in Anchorage or Juneau or someplace. It involves ferry rides and just all kinds of things. So they have the ability on some of these to actually do what they call mobile repair. They can actually send a technician to that vehicle and they fix it right there on the spot. So anybody that has a do not drive recall should never drive that vehicle at all. Contact the manufacturer immediately for guidance. And sometimes they either tow it, they make accommodations with the driver to get them a vehicle to drive and during the repair, or they send the mobile repair team to fix it. And I've actually seen them do these repairs. They can repair an airbag in about 12 minutes to pop it out in a new one, especially the driver's side. So that's the do not drive advisory. The park outside. This one, there were several of these issued, just in the last 6 months. But this is a recall where something inside the vehicle somewhere can cause usually a fire. So vehicle owners and drivers are advised to park these vehicles away from any structure and park them outside if they're at a residence. Good example, my mom had a vehicle that had one of these, and it was a battery issue. So they had to park that outside until she could get that repaired. There's another one involving a tow hitch. If the tow hitch contacts this wiring in just the right manner, the whole vehicle can catch on fire. So you're sitting there as an employer thinking, why does this impact me? Well, if you have a vehicle under one of these recalls from an employee, and they park in an employee parking lot, or they park next to a building, if you have storage containers on your property that they're parking next to, say you have some chemical tanks, you have a fuel tank, for example, they may be unaware that the vehicle they're driving is unsafe. You are unaware, and you look outside, and next thing you know, and it's rare that this happens, but still we want to do everything that we can to make sure our people are safe and their families are safe. Also, parking garages, another issue. If you have a parking garage at your facility and one of these vehicles happens to catch on fire, again, it is rare, but it's a possibility. We could have some bad things happen. So anyway, park outside and do not drive are the two. And again, they are rare, but they are out there and they can impact what's going on at your business. And again, parking garages, parking complexes, congested areas, events, if you're having an event of some type. And again, on a business property, if you have some type of flammable chemicals that you're parking next to, tanks, propane, whatever, it may not hurt to just make sure every employee is checking their vehicle before they bring that thing onto your lot. So food for thought. So how does it work? Well, here's the cool thing is there's no sign up. There's no app to download. There's nothing. Checkedprotect.org is just a web page. Again, our silent partner is Carfax. So you go to checkedprotect.org, and I'll have a couple of QR codes for you to look at here in just a moment. But you can go to checkedprotect.org right now. And there are three options out there. You can search by typing in your license plate number and enter the state. You can take a picture of your license plate number, which is very handy if you are outside, say in your employee lot, or if the employees want to check. Or you can type in that 17-character VIN, whichever is most convenient for you. Once you do that, you click the search button, and it will go and come back within just a few moments to tell you if there's a vehicle safety recall, and I'll show you what one looks like here in just a minute. The photo tool can be used if you so choose, and a lot of people we find are using this in the mobile version. So you go to checkedprotect.org on your phone. That's what it looks like when it pops up. And when you click on the license plate photo, it'll give you those three options. You can either use a library, take a picture, or choose a file. If you choose to take a live picture, we want you to get as close as you can, get all the digits in there, and take the photo, and it'll ask you, do you want to use this? You'll say yes, and off it goes. And within a matter of moments, you will get a notice back. So here's one from Washington, D.C., for example. It's 2012 Honda Civic, and there are no recalls. So you notice the green, and at the bottom, there's no recalls today. But here, in the next week or whatever, one could be issued for this older vehicle. So we put a little note on there, hey, add a calendar reminder. So it doesn't hurt. Every time you check your oil, once every 3 to 6 months, check that vehicle. And it doesn't take but a few seconds to do that to make sure that you're safe and your employees are safe and their families are safe. If there is a recall, this is what it looks like. And again, we put the red banner up there. This is that airbag inflator that I'd mentioned that breaks apart in the event of a crash. So we wanted to call attention to this one, that this one's a serious one, that people don't need to drive it. They need to call the manufacturer to see what they have to say. But it's not an app. Again, you don't have to download anything. People are always concerned, myself included, with security and data and privacy. So this is not an app. You don't have to sign up for anything. We don't even ask for your email address. So how many places do you go to on the web that don't want that? That's just the commitment the National Safety Council has to this. We want to make it open to everybody and very easy for people to use to check for their recalls. Again, you can use the VIN or the license plate number. And if you do have a recall, you'll notice on this one up in the upper right-hand corner, we have a Find a Dealer button. So you click on that bad boy and whew, off it goes. We'll get you to a closest dealer and you can get that thing fixed for free. So what are the barriers? You've probably, if you've gotten a recall notice, you've probably had the same thought. Okay, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to go to the dealership and sit and wait. This recall isn't that big a deal. I don't need to mess with it. It doesn't impact me right now. Or this one was unique. We learned that in certain cultures, there was a concern that having a vehicle with a safety recall would devalue the car, just like it was in a crash, which we've had an education campaign to let people know that is not the case. Additionally, we run across that, maybe parts aren't available. You've probably heard that before. They don't have any, this is my only vehicle. I need it for work. If you're a business owner, you have an AC HVAC business, you need those trucks, those vans for business. But at the same time, we want to make sure that everybody that's driving those things are safe. And then the last one is fear of an upsell. They're afraid if they go to a dealership, they're going to have to sit there and listen to a sales pitch. And I will tell you on that one, the dealers will probably do like a 20-point inspection, and they may notice, hey, by the way, your tires are bad. Your brakes have only got 10% less or left on them. You don't have to get any of those things fixed at all. Just tell them no. We're just here to get the recall fixed. I've got my own person that does brakes for me or whatever. So you just have to stand up to them and let them know, hey, I'm here for this. Unless you have a relationship with the dealer, then you can go from there. But these are the things we hear from the public. So how to help? So this is how it works. Social media, we have that. We try to reach people there. We'll show you here in a moment. We have some resources for you. If you're going to put out in a company newsletter, for example, to make sure your employees are safe, we have some resources for you. Here's the QR codes I mentioned. The one on your left as you're looking at the screen is the English version. The one on the right is the Spanish version. And again, it's just a link to checkedprotect.org. You can just type that in your search engine or whatever, and will be the first thing that comes up. Off you go, and everything is there for you. On that page, you'll see at the top, it has recall tools. So not only do we have, there we go. Not only do we have the vehicle recall, but those of you that own fleets of vehicles, I mentioned a HVAC business or whatever you've got. If you have a fleet of trucks, pickup trucks, I'd mentioned some of the vans that some of the carriers use. I mentioned Amazon, for example. You can do a bulk search. So if you've got 30 vehicles and you don't want to enter 30 VINs onto the website, you can go and click on our bulk vehicle recall tool. That will take you to our partner, who is Carfax. You just simply submit an email to them. They'll get you signed up, and you can enter up to 10,000 VINs at one time. And it'll come back in it's an Excel CSV file, and it'll tell you out of up to 10,000 all of the vehicles that have recalls and what the recalls are. If you just have a fleet of 5 or 10 vehicles, that may not be worth your time. It may be just as easy to enter the license plate and check them from your desktop. We also have child safety seat recalls. We have tire recalls, and then we link also to the NHTSA recall page on our website as well. Also on that page, these are the resources that you could use for your employees. You click on partner resources at the top, and we have everything there, and it's all free. We have ready-made social media. We have English and Spanish there. We have FAQs, we have talking points, we have resources for driving instructors, child passenger safety technicians. If you need a sample wording for a newsletter, reach out to Deanne, and I can get you a sample newsletter article that you can post if you send that out to your employees. It's already done. All we have to do is just get it to you, and you can include that, and off it goes. And hopefully your employees will take that to heart and check, because again, it's a safety issue. Our most value as employers, our most valuable resource is our people. And we want to make sure that they are safe on the job site as well as off the job site when they're at home. And if you do happen to have child safety seat technicians, I always throw this in there because that was the resource page. But across the country, there are 40,000 car seat technicians. So if you happen to go to one of them, they are going to use Check to Protect to take a look at the vehicle to make sure the vehicle is just as safe as the car seat that they're checking that very precious person that's going in there. So that is the presentation in a nutshell. I'm going to hit my stop share button here. Any questions that you have? I don't want to go over my time. I've got about 4 minutes left here. I always like to be respectful of everyone's time, so kind of keep an eye on that.
If you have a question, put it in the chat and we'll get it answered really quick.
And totally understand if you don't, because it's pretty straightforward. Go to checktoprotect.org, enter your license plate, there you go. As employers, the only thing that I could see is if you would be interested in that article, if you have a company newsletter, just reach out, get me an email address or get to Deanne, and I'll be happy to do that too.
Absolutely. Send me an email. I will put my email into the chat. I did put a link to our evaluation. We want to know what you thought of today's webinar session, and then also any comments for things that you're looking for in the future. So I am going to do this really quick. You don't have it. And yes, you will get a certificate of attendance for today if you are in the state of Texas. So any other questions or comments before we adjourn for today? Okay, that means we were very thorough. So I want to thank Lonny for conducting this session. It's very insightful. It is great to know what we need to do for recalls for our employees and within our businesses. So we appreciate Lonny giving us the information today. And I will follow up with a post-communication email with some links and things like that.